What if this thing pans out, this thing play out even longer? What if a recession happens? What if you lose your job? Look at expenses that you can cut. Make sure that you got a healthy surplus. Make sure you got emergency fund. In the past, financial advisors about committing to a large debt. Maybe think twice. Maybe 4 months ago, 3 months ago, you're thinking of investing in that huge, nice property, and as a result, you got to take a huge loan. Maybe think twice. Maybe you have gone to the car showroom and you really want to buy that car. Maybe think twice. Strengthen your financial foundation. So this whole thing about staying invested, don't do anything, it just doesn't work. Yeah, so I'm going to share my piece, and Chesson, feel free to jump in anytime. And actually, this is found in the article that I just wrote because I actually spent a lot of time thinking about what to write, and I don't want to repeat whatever everybody has said already. So, so I personally feel that there should be 3 responses. So the first response is the financial planning response. In any big crisis that affects financial market, there should be these 3 responses. First is financial planning response. In the financial planning response, there is a short-term financial planning response and there is a long-term financial planning response. The short-term financial planning response is, like I mentioned earlier, prepare for the worst. What if this thing pans out, this thing play out even longer? What if a recession happens? What if you lose your job? So I think the short-term financial planning response, relook at your financial health, make sure you are financially healthy, have a budget, look at expenses that you can cut, make sure that you got a healthy surplus, make sure you got emergency fund. In the past, financial advisors always say that you should have at least 3 to 6 months. I would say maybe now, maybe if you can, 6 to 12. Just in case you lose your job, I cannot find another one in the next 12 months, at least your family can live life normally, right? If you are thinking about committing to a large debt, maybe think twice. Maybe 4 months ago, 3 months ago, you're thinking of investing in that huge, nice property, and as a result, you got to take a huge loan. Maybe think twice. Maybe you have gone to the car showroom and you really want to buy that car. Maybe think twice, right, about it. So that's the short-term financial planning response. And if you can, if you don't have to change job, then don't change job, because you change a job, if there's retrenchment, maybe you're the first one to go. Right? So this is a short-term financial planning response. Strengthen your financial foundation so that you can weather through the storm.
Strengthen your financial foundation so that you can weather through the storm. Wow, such a great point.
That's the first point. The long-term financial plan response is that when you weather through the storm, and if this thing really goes on for the next 5-7 years, as I mentioned earlier, in the 1930s, the crisis during the Great Depression, right? You can stay invested for 15 years, but you get an average 2% return per year. I'm assuming that you are not doing regular investing. You invest at the beginning of 1930, you end at 1945, you are going to get an average about 2% return, right? Now, so the long-term financial planning response is that the next few years, if we are still in this pit, so-called, it will be good for you to relook at your assumptions of your return that you used to plan. Chesson does that with the team once a year, re-estimating the returns of the asset class, right? Because if the returns is going to come down, then you probably got to make adjustment to your plan. You cannot say that, I'm not going to do anything, I just stay invested, I should not lose my capital. But if the return is going to be lower than expected, then yes, you stay invested. 15 years later, you may not be able to reach your goal. So I think the long-term financial planning response is you probably got to either do it on your own or work with your advisor to estimate the returns, so that if necessary, you got to make adjustment to your plan.
Wow.
So this whole thing about staying invested, don't do anything, it just doesn't work. I don't know whether Chesson have anything to talk about re-estimating returns.
Yeah, I think, first of all, please talk to an advisor. This is not investment advice. I think, it's sort of along the lines of re-estimating your expected returns, but I think you should evaluate your portfolio, right? In a time like this, first of all, you want to think about your diversification. If you are overly concentrated in any one country, any one currency, any one sector, you might want to make some adjustments there. Of course, you want to think about what's your main currency that you want to be invested in, what are you spending your money in. You probably want to have more of your assets, liquid assets in that currency versus holding too much of a different currency, just in case that there's volatility in the other currency, right? So these are some of the things to consider. I think if you are an investor that has been that's holding a lot of individual stocks, you probably want to evaluate your assumptions about all your investments over this period, because the economic environment might change. Some of the businesses might make less money. You might want to think about whether or not it still makes sense to hold the position. And then, of course, you probably want to think about, if you're not diversified, look for some kind of strategy or something that can give you some global diversification, so that because right now we don't know how the trade flows will play out, how the economies will do. We don't know who the eventual I guess you can so-called winner in the whole situation will be. So you want to be diversified so that when that happens, you will have the exposure and your portfolio will benefit. So from that. So those are some of the key things that investors should be thinking about, especially in this time.
Yeah. So Chai-san has spoken the second response, which is the investment response, right? So the first is the financial planning response. The second is the investment response. And what we are trying to say really in a nutshell is that, we talk about markets will go up in the long run, so stay invested, keep investing, but that is on the assumption that you invest in the right things. Because if you invest in the wrong things, then 讲什么, right? I mean, the market can go up in the long run, but you buy one stock, the company goes down and went bankrupt. It's the end, right?
Even recently, if you look at 2000 and 2007, S&P was flat, right? After the dot-com, it didn't do anything for 7 years. In fact, back then, everybody was like, buy emerging markets, buy different, maybe European stocks or something, and then nobody wanted to buy S&P. Then after the emerging markets did so well until 2008, then emerging markets did nothing for the last decade.
Yeah.
So just holding one sector, one geography doesn't really work.
So globally diversified. Okay, don't just bank on US. Globally diversified. Second, use the correct instruments to buy. I mean, 2008, this is really what I experienced, right? I mean, you can tell people to stay invested in 2008, and if you have the guts to stay invested in 2008, but you are investing via active fund, the managers may have shifted part of that money to cash. So, you're actively invested in the fund, but the fund managers have taken some money into the cash, right? Sure. And then when the markets come rallying back in April of 2009, they didn't move in fast enough, then it doesn't mean anything to you, right? So, yes, so the investment response is, have a review of your own investment portfolio, be globally diversified, make sure you're investing in the right things so that you can be exposed to the market. When the returns come back, you're able to capture the returns. And perhaps this, is my pet peeve, or it's going to cause some people to be very upset, which is, that is my problem with ILP. I mean, if you are invested in
ILP is investment linked policy.
Yeah, so if you are invested in an ILP, you're locked in.
Yeah.
Right? You know that if you sell before the locked-in period is over, you can lose a lot of money, right?
Yes.
Now, of course, some people give the excuse that it's good to be locked in because locked-in prevents you from jumping out of the market, right? Yeah, sounds right. Although that's not the reason why the locked-in feature was created. The locked-in feature is created because they pay the compensation early. So if you sell, they have to crawl back some money, right? Because they already paid the distributor the money, right? But the locked-in presents the other problem, right? The locked-in, if you go and do a review of your portfolio and you realize that this manager actually is not good or not managing according to the mandate, and you want to get out, you can't, right? So there are many ways to prevent investors from jumping out. To slap them with a penalty if they jump out too early may not be the best way. So that's the investment response. The third response, which is a very important response, is a life response. I think to let a crisis pass without having a life response will be a wasted opportunity.
And what is a life response?
So in 2010, after the aftermath of the GFC, and I wrote that in the article as well, because I've been in the industry. I'm in the industry. Even Chai-sen, I'm sure you have seen that, heard of that. People lost their wealth.
Yeah.
People lost their pensions. People have to go back to work even though they are retired. Things are not so bad here, but in the US it was really bad. And because they cannot imagine themselves starting all over again, rebuilding all the wealth they've built over the last decades of their life, right? So in 2010, I did a reset on my own life. I decided that I want to declutter my life, so I moved from a private condominium to public housing. I'm not saying that everybody should go and move to HDB. It's just me, right? And then I decided I had 2 cars, then sold down 1 car, changed to kept 1 small car for the family.
My, if I ask what brand is the car?
You asked me before.
I can't remember.
It's now no. This car that I'm driving now is not the car in 2010.
That one.
2010, I drove a Nissan.
Nissan.
A Nissan
Okay.
1.4 liter.
1.4.
Nissan Sylphy, I think.
Wow.
I used to drive a Sylphy.
I
Did
had
you?
one, yeah, I had
Yeah,
one.
yeah. So
Had one.
so I kept that for the family, and
And you
decided.
took MRT and public
Yeah, it was very
transport.
tough lah. The first few months was very tough. But I redirected that surplus into more important things. But because of that decision, I felt very light, right? So right now, you just asked me, 45 minutes ago, how do I feel? And it's because I'm so light, right? I'm not so worried because firstly, I don't have to worry I'll lose a job unless the boss sack me. Okay.
How does the boss sack himself? But anyway.
No, I have external board members. They can sack me, right? But well, unlikely. So I still have my income. I got enough savings for my emergency fund, and like I said, my expenses, my kids have all gone to work, right? So I feel very like I'm at rest. So even in the middle of a storm, I can sleep very, very well. So a life response is this. If you have not made changes like that, if right now you're in the midst of this crisis and you're getting worried, you're like, oh, no, what if I lose my job? Wow, I've got this debt to pay, that debt to pay. I'm so tight, I stretch to the maximum. Something is wrong. Something is very wrong in your own life, right? So this crisis offers you an opportunity to do a reset. You have this one opportunity to do a reset. Take this opportunity to do it, because before I know it, this crisis will pass very, very quickly. Crises like this, they won't happen very often. Good times will come again, and you'll forget about all these important lessons. You'll start buying the S&P 500 only again, right? You'll start buying cryptocurrency again. You're looking for the next house to buy, the next big car to
Landed
upgrade,
house, yeah.
until you get hit. So don't waste this opportunity. Take this opportunity to do a reset of your life, because it will give you peace of mind, which is the most important.
Peace of mind. Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, these are the 3 responses: the financial planning, the investment response, which Chai-sen mentioned, and then of course the life response.
That's such a deep and always life touching. So just 2 more questions. Number 1 is, now clearly this time around we get hit with something that we haven't experienced for a long time. In fact, never in my life. That's called extreme volatility. Last time was then up, but now it's up down up down up down down. It's and I realized that there are people who just can't take volatility. Are there options for people who don't take volatility? What's your advice for them?
Yeah. So, actually, I've been thinking about this for quite a while. Having spent almost 3 decades in the advisory industry, I come to a conviction. And again, it's a bit controversial, and some people may hunt me for this conviction.
I always like it whenever you tease me this way.
I feel that for the common man in the street, there may not be a need to invest to secure their retirement, and maybe they shouldn't invest.
Oh,
And I'm specifically referring to Singaporeans. Okay, I can't say for other countries, but Singaporeans. Why do I say that? Because most men in the street, they don't know how to invest. They don't have knowledge, they don't have enough knowledge, they don't have enough experience, they lose more money than make money. And secondly, this one quite scary to say. Secondly, I find that the common man in the street, they don't have easy access to good advisors to help them to invest. And as a result, they may end up buying the wrong things and they can be worse off. So I don't say this lightly. It's my observation over the last 30 years. I see what most people buy when clients come, what they have in their
Ask you to rescue them.
Yeah, right. So I was thinking about this for a long time. I said, perhaps for these people, it is actually better off that they don't invest the money.
Put your money in CPF, SA, whatever.
Yeah, that's the one of the things that they can do. So I have, in a way, come to a conviction that as long as they do these 3 C's properly, their retirement should be secured without having to take the risk of the investment market. What's the first C? Cash flow management.
Okay.
One of the biggest problems with the man in the street is they don't manage their cash flow well. And in a business, cash flow is king.
Oh yeah.
Right? And in a personal life, cash flow is king. No cash flow, no surplus, you can't do anything. So in cash flow management, make sure your financial health is strong, whatever we talk about. Make sure you have a budget, make sure you spend below your means, make sure you have a surplus, make sure you have got a good emergency fund, make sure you don't take on too much debt, make sure that whatever cash you have, you put it at the right place to get a higher return, a higher interest, like your higher yielding, higher interest bank accounts, your SSB, your T-bills, or your trust bank, or whatever. Right? So that's cash management. Now, if you do that well, that's a very good start already because you have cash. The second C is actually coverage management, insurance coverage.
Sure.
A lot of Singaporeans, and we know we talk about this many times, a lot of Singaporeans, I find that they buy a lot of insurance, they pay a lot of premiums, but it doesn't mean they are sufficiently covered.
Whole life, ILPs.
Yeah. So if they take care of the coverage well, they know what are the right insurance to buy. They don't have to spend a lot of money, and they should be comprehensively and adequately covered.
And you're specifically mentioning more leaning towards term insurance.
Yeah, term
That's good, right?
insurance, having a good hospital and surgical plan, things like that. I'm not saying whole life is useless, but the reliance on whole life today is just too much on the other on the extreme.
If you don't mind, I hear a lot of the 165 community write to me. They cannot start with the wrong insurance, especially whole life, ILPs, and all these kind of things. And I don't know how to help them, to be frank. But this is where I always refer them to Haven.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where Chris has another company. We call it subsidiary.
Yeah, it's a sister company.
Sister company Haven. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you all do help people, men in the
Plan.
street, with
That's right.
with their insurance needs.
Yeah, so there's 2 C's. So cash management, coverage management, and the third one is actually CPF management. Right? So for CPF management, I believe that if the man in the street, they optimize their CPF, something you advocate, top up their special account, their CPF life subsequently should be able to take care of their retirement. Right? And if that is not enough, and for people who want to retire earlier at 55, because the problem with CPF life, it pays at 65, right? If you want to retire earlier, well, you can consider some retirement income insurance plan, supplement your CPF life with retirement income insurance plan, it should be good. So these 3 C's, if you do it well, and which is what you said just now, I mean, we at Providend, we cannot help this group of people, but Haven can, right? Because and Haven is actually doing this kind of planning for the man in the street, focusing on the 3 C's, making sure people is able to secure their retirement without having to take too much investment risk.
Wow. Okay. And by the way, you all need. I'll put the link somewhere. Haven, how to contact them, because a lot of people ask me, and as if I work for Haven. But I think these are great insights in a difficult time like this for many people. And unfortunately, we're only in the beginning. Okay, so we really appreciate that both of you all can come and give us this incredible advice. And any final words of wisdom?
Well, about 6-7 years ago, I developed this thing called, a very simple concept called the personal money equation. And the personal money equation have 2 sides, the left side and the right side. The left side is a short-term financial planning side. The right side is the long-term investment strategy side. People always like to talk about the right side because it's more sexy. People always like to tweak the right side in a crisis. But really your focus in a crisis is not to tweak your right side too much. The focus is actually taking care of your left side, which is your short-term financial planning side. So in this crisis, focus on the correct side. Focus on making sure that your financial foundation is strong. And if that can happen, your right side should take care of it.
Wonderful. Any last words?
I think in a time like this, just try to focus on the good things in life. Try not to overly panic. Don't read too many financial headlines. Leave that to the professionals. That's my job to do it for our clients. But yeah, take care of your mental health. And I think one of the best ways to do it is to really, have a portfolio that you trust, and then don't look at it too much in a time like this, so that you can focus on the better things in life.
Wonderful. Always good, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, that's wonderful. We're so honored. Thank you for sharing your words of wisdom.
Thank you.
And we know that you all have a busy day, busy schedule, so many clients to take care of, and you still share all these things with us. And that's why I always love them, right? So thank you again for coming. And always rewatch this thing. The last time I watched this video, I watched 2 to 3 times, and I think it's wonderful. Thanks for coming again, and we'll see you in a day or two. Bye bye.